that window.
We're good?
Mm-hmm.
That was a little disarming the first time I saw that. Oh, that's neat. To
Was
see the
it?
before. Yeah.
The truth is usually it's the before that's most interesting.
It's probably true.
Yeah, it was twisted the other way.
We used to forget to tell people that they were live, so
Yeah.
then they'd say
Oh.
S-bombs,
now
F-bombs, this and that.
now so on when we're live you can't cuss. I mean you could say like ass and
Yeah.
but try not
Within
to
reason,
I'll do
you
my
just
best.
don't want to push it too much.
You got like 9 of them in a row. Too much.
Yeah.
1, fine.
All right, helpful. I'll keep a tally under the table.
And you are both on live right now on those, so.
cool. We're over there.
Can you see?
I like that one because that one can't see my face.
You want to get this, so you can like move it around if you need
Okay.
to, but just try to talk into it.
Okay.
And try to talk in a clear, upbeat voice. It makes you
Okay.
sound clear. That's about all. It's pretty
Great.
simple.
Fun with it.
Yeah. Have fun. Just fun. Okay.
Oh boy.
I can't dance.
Okay.
Typical white
Uh,
guy.
your official title is community pastor. I'm
Yes.
gonna say that.
Okay.
And I think that's it. I always get like really nervous before this starts.
Aw.
So if you hear my voice shaking,
Yeah.
it's because I'm nervous.
Yeah, I used to like those first 3 or 4 words out of my mouth would be wavy.
Yeah.
And then I would hit a groove. I think that's super normal.
Yeah.
Like anytime you do public speaking, it's
And like we can talk
takes a
about
little
that because
bit.
like you're in front of people every week,
Yeah.
and I know you said that you've been through training. You've had to take all the criticism.
Uh-huh.
Like that's all good stuff to talk about too.
Cool. I mean, not cool. That's hard stuff.
But cool.
But helpful.
'cause-
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, you ladies are ready whenever you want to start.
We are ready.
All right, in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to HER614. This is the show where we bring on extraordinary women in the Columbus, Ohio community. We talk about their successes and their failures in hopes of inspiring others to get started on their journey towards success. I'm Michael Cheney. Please check us out on Facebook at HER614. Like our page, help us build that page up. And also, if you know an amazing woman in the community that should be featured on our show, please reach out. We would love to tell her story. Today, I'm thrilled to have our first ever pastor on the show. Don't get nervous.
I'm not.
Okay,
I'm ready for
I was
this.
actually talking to myself. I have Vicki Diller on the show. She is a community pastor at a local church. Vicki, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Super glad to be here.
Yes, I'm so happy you're here. So here's what I want to know.
Okay.
I'm assuming when you have the title of pastor, that comes with a lot of responsibility.
Yes.
And I want to know, what does that feel like? What does that responsibility feel like in your life on a day-to-day?
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely weighty because I've been handed a group of people who I'm meant to develop and mature and really make them the best versions of themselves. That's my job. Is anyone who comes in the door, make it a space where they can explore who God is, and then help them mature. And sometimes that is spiritual maturing, sometimes that is professional maturing, sometimes that's relational.
Sure.
The realm of taking care of people kind of covers all areas of life. And so, yeah, it's weighty. It's a really heavy role.
Absolutely.
That sits heavy. And but I also have to recognize, like, anytime that we fool ourselves and think something is dependent on us and us only, man, that's scary.
That's good.
Yeah, so I try really hard to say I'm going to do my very best that I can in every situation and trust that I am one of many people in that person's life, or maybe I just turned them just a slightest bit in the right direction and someone else takes over. You know, you have to trust a bigger game
Sure.
than what one individual can do.
Do you feel like you get judged because of the position you're in? Like, you know, if you, I don't know, say a cuss word, if you, you know, do something that people don't think is, you know, in line with whatever they think the church is about, do you feel like you get judged?
Yes and no. Yes, and that some people do. Some people do that. The no part is, I've learned over time, like, I am accountable to God. From my perspective, I'm accountable to God and what He says about me and who He says I am and the ways He's refining me. And I need to trust that above and beyond those other voices in my life. And so
Right.
for me, it's that, yes, that happens. Yes, that hurts on some days. Yes, that weighs heavy some days more than others. But it's a constant process of saying, okay, no, who am I? Who was I made to be? Where am I learning and growing? And having this self-filtering
Sure.
to know how to process through all that.
Yeah, and that's like something I think that we all try to learn and adapt to, right?
Yeah.
Because all of us on some level can be exposed to judgment, and being able to kind of tune that out and stay in your course and stay on the path that you believe in
Yes.
is I think really kind of a skill that you just have to learn over time.
Yeah, and it's not I'm still open to new perspectives. I'm still open to coaching and feedback. I mean, those are really important and integral parts of my career path. And yet there's a higher level filtering that has to happen
Sure.
to stay on track.
Yes. So let's talk about your career path, because
All right.
it sounds like it's one that you didn't expect to be on.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. So I kind of grew up in church. I grew up in a Catholic family. And by the time I reached high school was really like, yeah, I don't know about church. So
Sure.
I went away to college and studied nutrition at the University of Cincinnati and thought I would be a dietitian kind of with my life,
Yes.
which is really funny. Now it's like,
Do you are you into that health? Are you like a healthy eater? Do you
Yeah.
take a lot of those things that you learned and apply it to your life now?
yeah. But for me, it was one of those like, you can't always make a career out of a hobby.
Yes, very true.
And the career path was like not as fun as
Absolutely.
having it as a hobby.
I found that out with
Yeah.
a history degree. There's not much you can do with a history degree, it turns out.
yeah.
Read about the Civil War, I guess.
Read about the Civil War.
So you go to college thinking you're going
Yeah.
to do one thing, and then how did you discover this other path for yourself?
Yeah, so a friend of mine, like kind of through crisis, a friend of mine invited me to attend church. And I went to Crossroads in Cincinnati and loved it, fell in love with it, felt like it was for me. It was really action-based, and so I felt like I could take what I was hearing and apply it. And so my life changed because of that. Like I could take what I was hearing and start to apply it. And then one day they were like, hey, we need some volunteers around here. And I was like, okay, cool. I like working with kids. I've grew up in a big family. Kids are always around. I'm pretty good with kids. So I signed up to volunteer in the kids ministry. And my second week there, I ended up volunteering with a woman who like looked me dead in the eye and was like, do you know you're a leader? And I like got all red in the face and I like laughed at her. And I was like, I'm 21. Like I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. I've never led a work team. I'm trying to figure out my life. Like, I don't know. I think you're wrong.
You did not associate your name with leadership in any way.
Correct. Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool because, I don't know, I feel like I've had these moments in life where I might want to say that to someone and I don't.
Yeah.
But after you telling me this story, I feel like, you know what, next time I have that feeling or inclination, I should just say it.
Yes.
Because it really it changed the trajectory of your life, really.
Yeah. She spoke something into me that day that at an important time in my life. And she saw it while we were volunteering with 2-year-olds. Like, I mean, was like so out of the blue, but she saw it and she said it. And then more than that, she like stayed on me with it, meaning she was like, let's go to lunch and talk about that. Like, let's start to study leadership together and see what that looks like for you. And so she invited me into a longer mentorship relationship of saying like, I see this and I can help build it in you. I always say she like fanned me into flame. Like she was like, I'm gonna make you brighter.
That's a great way to say that.
Yeah.
What does she think of where you are now? I have to imagine she's really proud of you.
She is. She's wildly proud of me. She's one of the biggest fans of our family, of any woman in my life. She's a huge fan of us.
Now, you grew up in a Catholic church.
Yeah.
What does your family think about what you're doing now?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. My mom a few weeks ago said, I always wondered if someone in our family would be called to work at the church. I always thought to look at the boys, but it turns out like it was in you the whole time. Like you're the one who had questions. You're the one who thought about it in the evenings and wanted to know why this way or why that way, or you're the one with the big questions about life. And she's like, it was in you. It wasn't in the boys, like where she had been looking. So it's super interesting.
That is very interesting. The other piece of this is that being a pastor, is having that title, is it still considered like a male dominated field?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, largely like still considered. I would say from my personal experience, there are very few women at the table. In circles I've been to, pastors' meetings, even here in this city,
Sure.
It is largely male dominated, which honestly is, it's interesting. It's an interesting position to be in. And for me, it's one where I'm like, no, all the more reason to clarify and be confident in my own voice.
Absolutely.
And the own value that I bring to the table. It's all the more reason for me to do that hard introspective work. And say, who am I, and what giftings do I have, and am I using them, and where am I using them? And then when I do that hard work, then I don't worry about whether or not I feel like I have a place at the table as much.
Sure. Well, and I think, because I'm in an industry that's male dominated, and I talk about this topic a lot, because I think when you're female in that type of situation, when you can really explore your gifts and what makes you different, and be willing to be vulnerable and put that out there, ultimately I think that's kind of the key to success.
Yeah.
Now
absolutely.
I'm still trying to navigate that myself, but can you share any more about kind of that thought?
Yeah, I maybe it was you. I was telling somebody recently, I have felt the wall, and for me that wall it's like a combination of vulnerability or self-doubt, or but that wall of I know I meant to say something right here. I know I meant to do something right here. And that feels really scary and hard. And for still, but a lot early on, if I did it, if I went for it, if I did the thing in the room that I felt like I was supposed to, it literally felt like I ran into a wall.
Yes.
I would go home physically exhausted, mentally exhausted, oh my gosh, that was terrible. And then the self-doubt would start to circle in your mind, and you're like, no. I know. What's true is I felt like I was supposed to do something in the moment, and I did.
Right.
And I need to let the rest of it go. And the sooner I could get over that hitting the wall feeling, and sometimes they're 3 times in one day I felt like I ran into a wall. But as soon as I could pick myself back up, learn from the experience, and be willing to engage again when I feel like I have something to add, the growth came so much faster.
Right on, because that is exactly what we talked about. We talked about being vulnerable, because that's the place of growth, right? And being willing to do the thing that you're scared of is ultimately what allows you to not be scared and progress and learn different skills. So I think that's pretty amazing. When you get up on Sunday mornings and talk, are you nervous?
Oh yes.
You don't appear to be nervous.
Well, thank you. Actually, one of the girls on our team, she helps pull off some of the experience stuff that happens in room. And she said one of her favorite learnings since we launched back in January through just last week was how rough my first run through is.
Okay.
And how much feedback I get from my first run through. And then how I usually do it once or twice more, and how it gets a little bit better each time. And for me, the skill of taking the feedback in the coaching and implementing it has been slow. I'm slow to learn that.
It's hard. That's difficult. So actually, that's what I wanted to ask you is, you're in a situation, in a profession that you have access to constant feedback, probably whether you want it or not. But how do you take the feedback and not let it, put a drag on your confidence or who you are? How do you really just take it and sit with it and then allow it to make you better?
Yeah, I mean, and I haven't always done it well. So it's a learning process, and there's days it's great and days it's really hard. I think the number one thing for me is I have to choose trust with the people who are in the room. And so anyone who gives me feedback, any gap that's created, any uncertainty, any emotional thing going on. I fill that gap with trust. So I have to say, I know this person's character. I know their heart for me is good. I know they want the best for me in this community. And I have to fill that like gap in how I feel about it with trust. And when I do that well, then I can take the feedback and implement it quicker. When I'm like, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Then it takes me a little bit longer to process. And so I had a couple weekends ago where I was like, I need you guys to be quiet. I'm going to sit down and take a break. And I sat down on the stage, took a 5-minute break, and was like, okay, I'm ready again. Because I need those moments of like, I'm going to collect myself. I'm going to process this. I'm going to work through how I felt about it. I'm going to be willing to give it another go.
Well, and I think that really what that does, it tells me, it like speaks to the quality of your leadership team, of the people you surround yourself with, because when you can really in your mind say, you know what, I'm trusting, I'm just going to put my faith out there, which is really what you do all the time, right? And if you're thinking about, you know, the faith that you have to emulate to even be in the position that you're in. But you're right, like being able to change the thought process in your mind, so, you know, I trust these people, they've got me. I think that's pretty amazing. And I can see why it's hard to get to that place.
Yeah, and they may not say it well.
Right.
Because we're all human. So they may deliver it in a way that I'm like, well, that was kind of sucky.
Right.
Like, maybe use different words next time.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
Like, that little part of me can, like, pout a little bit. Like, I didn't like the way you said that. But what I have to do is say, like, no, they're human, and their heart for me is good.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if it's delivered in a way that I don't love, it's still valuable feedback.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to choose to trust their heart,
Yeah.
not hang on every word.
Yeah, and ultimately you all have the same goal, which probably helps you get to that a bit faster. So the one thing, I mean, there's several things that I find very unique about you, but one thing in particular that we've talked about is you seem to have this ability to be around people that are different from you, probably people that have different views on life, different values, and you seem to like be able to just adapt to different people. And I really want you to speak on that, because I think that's like a huge piece of what we're missing in this world. I mean, look at the political environment, not that we want to bring up politics, but you kind of like have to. It's like you have the ability to say, you know what, our differences aside, I still want to get to know who you are.
That's right.
Can you like share more about that?
Yeah, I think for me there have been huge opportunities or huge things placed on my heart, like things I've wanted to make a difference in, or ways I've wanted to have an impact in the world around me. And every time that I've said yes to one of those really hard things, like those things that like you probably could keep inside and no one would ever know, and maybe over time it would die away, but instead say like yes to that big, crazy, scary thing that's been really percolating inside of you. Every time I've said yes to that, it all I see are the things I don't know. So it's like I say yes to it, I take one step forward, and I'm immediately like, shoot, there is so much going on here that I know nothing about. There are people I'm now exposed to who have lived very different stories than what I've lived. There's new relationships in my life where I have to figure out like who they are and what's shaping them and how they're coming to make the decisions they're making, and do that in a way that's like genuinely curious and genuinely because I want to love them well.
Right, and not judgmental.
Yeah.
That's the piece that I find so unique, because our tendency is to judge and really point out how different they are from us. And can you like speak to that? How do you separate your judgment and be open and willing to get to know someone?
Every time that I feel that moment of like, how could this person fill in the blank? I choose to take a step forward. So I take a step into that. And so our family was involved with foster care for a long time in Cincinnati. And some of the ways of life I was exposed to were just like earth-shattering to my worldview.
Sure.
And instead of being like, wow, that's so weird, or that's different, or that's scary, it's like, no, I need to understand more how someone comes to the place where this is the best decision they feel like they can make in their life. Or and so for me, it's like anytime I feel that sense of like other than, it's like I'm going to take a step towards that person and understand where they're coming from and what's shaped them.
It's pretty amazing. So talk about foster care, because it's near
Yeah.
and dear to your heart.
Yeah.
And you and your husband are doing some pretty amazing things on that front. What can you talk to me about when it comes to your experience with foster care?
Yeah, foster care is wild. It's been the most beautiful and the most challenging journey we've ever been on. And it's fully both of those things. Like,
Yes.
not one or the other on different, no, it is fully both of those
Right.
things. So we started our foster care journey around the same time we were having our first biological child. So I have kids now who are 5, 4, and 3. Our middle daughter joined our family through foster care.
And you're still in here smiling.
Yeah.
That is a very close age range.
It's more than close. It's wild. I feel like I run a preschool
Yeah.
some days.
Okay. I can
Um,
see why.
Yeah, so for us, our first placement was with a little baby girl who we knew very soon after she came home, like, this girl's not going anywhere. And so we had to wrap our minds around, like, what does it look like to fight for a baby for 60, as many years as we have her. Like, what does
Yes.
it mean to look at a baby and be like, I'm going to see you through adulthood, and the way that I fight for you and advocate you is different than what I would have thought with a child.
Sure.
So it was nice to have done both of those tracks kind of at the same time, because it really opened our eyes up to, like, no, what does parenting look like, and what does advocating for your child look like? And we got to be shaped by her and her story.
Yeah.
Like, I always say, people think foster care is like taking a child and bringing them into your life. And in reality, it's like you end up meeting in the middle.
Yes.
Because, like, she has a whole story and a whole background, and she has generations that came before her. And in all of that, I can't just take her and plug her into my
Exactly.
family. And no, it ends up this weird meet in the middle thing of we become shaped by her story and her ethnicity, her needs,
Absolutely.
all of that. We're
And that's going to be like a challenge for you and your family, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot there, and unfortunately, we don't have time to unpack that.
Yeah.
What I want, here's my question: when I see people, getting involved in foster care and stuff like that, is there a fear of that? What's it like when there's a possibility that child might not end up with you?
Yeah. We had that situation. So, the good news going into it was a birth mom who we really believed in.
Sure.
And so we got to walk the journey of advocating for a birth mom and helping her, like, hey, let's look at your resume. Like, what's your job looking like? Did you take that parenting class? What did you learn? And so we got to advocate for her, and at the same time fall in love with her baby.
Sure, and be instrumental in
Yeah.
maybe keeping the family together or getting them back together in a way, right?
Yeah, so our experiences have been on the far extremes.
Sure.
So one who we're like, oh, she's going to be part of the Diller family forever. And then the other end where it's like, oh no, our job is actually to build this mother up, to be a voice that believes in her, because we did.
Absolutely.
To encourage her and to see them reunify. And so I feel lucky that we were in a situation where we believed in her.
That's pretty amazing.
And it's awesome. We still have a relationship. We still get to see them. It's been a really powerful experience
That's super
for us.
cool. And you're helping build the community, right? Which I know is at the heart of what you do. Is participating in the community and making it a better place. If someone wants to get in contact with you or see you on Sunday mornings, how do they do that?
Yeah, so I am the community pastor at Crossroads Church. So they can head to crossroads.net to find out more about that. Or you can just email me directly. It's Vicki, VICKI.Diller, DILLER @crossroads.net.
Very cool. So my last question for you is,
Okay.
what do you do? Is it books, podcasts, TV shows? I don't know. What is it that you do that keeps you motivated, keeps you inspired to do what you do on a daily basis?
Reading has been like the number one way, but I'm a visual learner.
Okay.
So reading for me, I take in a lot of books. And that's one of the ways I'm inspired. The other is I love TED Talks.
I love TED Talks.
And I love TED Talk style events.
Do you have any like favorite that you want to mention?
I think my absolute favorite is called What Children Learn Before They're Born.
Ooh.
And it's a peek inside the in utero experience, which is helpful for any parent.
Sure.
Or anyone who works with kids
Absolutely.
in any regard.
I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah.
Now, when reading, I'm
Yeah.
assuming you read the Bible.
I do.
Do you read the Bible every day?
Most days.
Like, what does that look like? What do you, I mean, I know you're probably reading to help with whatever you're going to be talking about in church, but like, how do you decide in the Bible what you want to read?
I wish I had a great method that I could teach the whole world, but I pop around a little bit.
Okay.
So some of it's like, hey, I'm just going to dive into a section. I'm going to read this whole section start to finish. Some of it is I'll read a devotional that will link to a scripture that then sets me on a track of reading that scripture and the ones surrounding it or one similar. I would say when I'm most consistent, it is reading through a chapter. So I'll
Okay.
read a little bit every day of the same chapter and get something out of it that way.
Very cool. Any podcasts or anything that you love to tune into?
I listen most to The Aggressive Life, which is a podcast from our senior pastor,
Okay.
Brian Tome. That's the one I listen to most consistently. In my heavy motherhood days, I listen
Sure.
to Risen Motherhood a lot. And then I love Joe Saxton's podcast on women leadership.
Very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice. So let's end on talking about women in leadership.
Great.
What do you see for your path in leadership? Like ultimately, what are you hoping this community pastor path leads you to?
Yeah, that's a great question. Right now I'm in the process of letting my heart see and break for the city of Columbus. So right now I'm in a process of saying, okay, what is Columbus? What are its disparities? What needs does it have as a city? And really diving into getting personally involved in some of those needs. Because I think when we do that, then it shapes our ability to have an impact. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I think that's the number one thing my leadership in this city needs
I love
is to really dive into what's going on in the city and who's doing good work in those areas and how do we work together. So that's kind of where I'm at professionally now, is saying, okay, how do I get to know this city at a much deeper level?
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, don't forget to check out all the restaurants in Columbus because there are some great ones.
Really good ones.
Vicki, thank you so much for being with us
Absolutely.
today. This was awesome. I'm glad I got to know you on a little bit different level. And please tune in next week to HER614. Don't forget to give us a like on Facebook, and we will see you next week. Awesome. Good job.
Thanks.
You did great.
Thanks.
That wasn't bad, was it?
No, it's super
And
easy.
doesn't it go so fast?
It's so